Okay, let me see here. So, so we'll spend the next, possibly the next 20-25 minutes discussing this paper, From E-Governments to We Governments. I believe that this is let's say, the strongest paper that we have today in terms of, how would I say, in terms of, well, providing us with a structure, right, for research. Of course, research in e-governments and in e-government, thinking of the ways in which citizens can be involved involved in government, traditionally government activities. Let me just do something here. Just a second. Okay, I have this on paper, so it will probably be easier to just discuss it instead of using the screen there, using my own paper here, and you'll see me, right? Why do I see that this is the strongest paper? In addition to being a paper that is very well structured with respect to what we expect in an academic paper. By the way, that's something that we should discuss in a little more detail here, right? What do we expect? What do you usually see in an academic paper? I think we've already browsed that in the past, but academic papers, I remember that I think yesterday, Danielle was telling me that he had seen a paper in another course with Professor Thiago Silva, in which he was, the author was explaining how to read an academic paper. So Danielle, if you haven't still shared that paper with your colleagues, please do that. Please send them a link on WhatsApp after this class, because it may be interesting for them to have a look at that, right? And basically, what we have in a paper, an academic paper, is an abstract that tells us three things: what the objective is for the paper, what the methodology is, what are the procedures that we're taking in the methodology to lead you to the results you got, and what results you got, right? So this should be the abstract. And when you read the abstract should be something that replaces the whole paper, at least for us to decide if we want to read the paper or not. The abstract is not part of the paper. It's something that replaces the paper, in the sense that many people will read the abstract and know that they don't need to read anything else, either because that paper is dealing with things that are not related to your own research, or because you already understood that the way that the work was developed, the methodology, is not something that you consider reasonable, right? So this is why a good abstract is so important. Many people decide if they're going to read your paper or not by the abstract, right? It's not a trailer to the paper. It's not that you tell part of the story and then you stop there and say, well, now you have to, like they do with movies, right? Now you have to watch the movie. That's not the intention. It has to be a complete replacement for people to decide, yes, I want to have more detail or not. And so in that sense, does this paper provide its objective? I don't know if you have it in your hands, but if you do, or if it's easy for you to check, does the abstract already provide objective, method, and results? If anyone has the paper with them, or can easily, I realize that if you're watching this through your smartphone, it's difficult to do that. But if you have the paper in your hands, if you had printed it, or just check if you can see in the abstracts what the objective of the paper was.
The paper proposed a unified topology to support systematic analysis based on our changing categories.
Perfect. That is, notice that he's not saying there's a little difference between the objective and what the paper does, right? But they, I mean, we get the objective by, as Gustavo said here, by what the paper is proposing. In this case, the author didn't state exactly what the objective was, but he said what the paper does, and that provides us with an idea of what the paper, what we'll find in the paper. So, so basically, what we can expect from this paper is that it will provide us with a typology. Okay, you've already read the paper. Does it fulfill this promise? Do we get a typology?
Of course.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll discuss the typology later, but of course, the abstract is not long enough to show us all the details of the typology, but it already tells us if we are thinking that, for example, the collective intelligence and even that, well, the ways in which collective intelligence can be used for e-governments, if we think that this is all very, it's fuzzy, and probably many of you are thinking that at this stage of the course, you're saying, well, we need some structure now, right? This guy is trying to start providing us with some structure, saying, if you want to use collective intelligence for e-governments, this is what I found, and it's in a table, right? So we'll spend quite some time discussing this table afterwards, all right? Okay, what is the methodology? What are the methodological procedures that Linders uses to carry out this objective? Is that also presented in the abstract? You're too quiet, and then I will try. Yeah, go on. Was anyone going to say anything? No? Okay, it doesn't so clearly do that. It doesn't say the methodological procedures that were used here were these and that, right? And those. But we get some understanding because he says that even continuing the objective, it says that the analysis is based on the overarching categories of citizen sourcing, government as a platform, and do-it-yourself government. Well, this is still, yeah, this is still, I'd say that this is still part of the result that he gets, but he says that to demonstrate its use, the typology is applied to leading US government implementations. So maybe here there's some, I would say that if I were the editor, I would ask this guy to provide us a little more information on how he got to the typology already in the abstract. But basically what he did was he went there and checked many instances of government and saw what they were doing. Some of them were dealing with citizens in one way, others were dealing in a different way, right? And that's how he got to the typology. So I agree with you that you were quiet there because the answer is not very clear from the abstract. So we sort of guess how that was done, and if we were really strict with respect to how the methodology should go, we could say, well, this is still not enough. I would like to know very precisely what the process was, so that if I wished, I could replicate it, right, and get to the same results. Because of course, if you replicate and get to different results, then the results of the previous research are not so generalizable, and therefore you think, why should I read someone's paper or someone's work if that does not allow me to predict what will happen in the world afterwards, right? We always want to have some, we want to use research that others have done to shorten our own need to do our own research. We want to get more knowledgeable so that we can take better decisions in other situations. We will never be exactly in the same situation as a different researcher or a different person in this world. So we want research to be as generalizable as possible, right? And what are the results of the paper? Does he provide us hints on the results that he obtained? Possibly the last 3 lines of the abstract, right? When he says, the paper concludes with a discussion of the potential implications of public administration, the remaining limitations and rising social concerns, and the possible emergence of a new social contract that empowers the public to play a far more active role in the functioning of their governments. So what we believe that we're going to see in the paper afterwards, after this hints on the conclusions, is that the author believes that e-government is not going to be the same after the introduction. Well, government is not going to be the same after the introduction of these information and communication technologies that allow for greater participation of citizens. Okay. All right. So maybe now I will want to go again to our screen in which I show the paper, because let's see here, because I believe that we can go straight to their model, to their typology. Well, before we go very far in the typology, we have here a first table 1, in which the author, I'm trying to move things around here. They're not moving. Yes, they are. Okay, variables defining the spectrum of co-production in literature. And notice that here he's not talking about co-production in e-government. He's talking about co-production in general. So there is always a discussion of who are the actors and who are the beneficiaries. In fact, some of the criticism that the author here provides already in the introduction is that many people would claim that involving customers in doing things that government used to do in the past only means that the government is trying to push to citizens things that that government is not being competent in doing, which may be true to some extent. We'll have to discuss that. But at the same time, it could even be an additional reason for governments to push to citizens things that government is incompetent in doing, if citizens may become more competent in doing that based on the technology they have in their hands, right? I mean, we don't have to keep doing something that we don't do well if others can do it better. So I don't see that, although some people claim that this is just an excuse when governments try to involve citizens these days. It's just an excuse for not doing their own job. I think that we're probably, the thing is a little different to that. It's probably that with the technological tools that we do have today, maybe citizens are better suited to deal with some issues that in the past they needed to or they required governments to do because they were not capable. There's also an issue here about citizen power and responsibility, right? And in fact, the more responsibility and the more power you give to people, the more demanding they are going to be, on the other hand. So, and this is why politicians many times are a little concerned about involving citizens, because they know that after involving citizens, those citizens that are more involved are going to be also more demanding, right? Embeddedness, the level in which, or the degree to which government staff is embedded within the community and its processes. And then a different perspective is the definition of the spectrum of public service delivery partnerships, right? In fact, is the citizen a customer or a partner to governments? So here there's research that deals with the stage of service delivery, of the service delivery cycle, discussion on if it's problem-based or opportunity-driven, and discussions on if the involvement of citizens should be single purpose, a little more like the traditional vision of crowdsourcing, or a broader involvement, meaning that maybe do we already have the problems and then we just involve customers in a very specific, in dealing very specifically with the solution of those already well-defined problems, or do we involve citizens in ways that they can become even those who are going to define what the relevant problems are. So this is I mean, I like the tables in this paper because they provide us with, after we read the paper, they provide us with a good summary of the main ideas. But the really good table, or the really important table, is this table 2, that basically shows 3 different perspectives in which citizens can be involved. One of them is what the author calls citizen sourcing, C2G, because the citizens are used to support the governments, right? The second perspective would be one in which the government becomes a platform. So government doesn't see citizens as happened here in the first perspective. It doesn't see the citizens as just labor to perform the work, but it sees itself as a platform that can help citizens develop their own things. And a third, more radical perspective is a do-it-yourself government. They call it here C2C because this doesn't involve the government. So the first one, the government tries to involve citizens and get them to work towards the objectives that the government has already set. The second one, the government develops a platform or becomes a platform for citizens to decide what is important to them. And the last one, very radical one, is citizens give up on government and decide, well, we'll do that on our own, right? We will develop the platform or the technology that we need, and we will do it because government is not trustable, or government is not capable of dealing with our own problems, and citizens become so active that they decide this is our own issue, it's not a government issue, right? And then so we have these 3 perspectives that are shown here in the columns of this table, and then we have levels of or stages of participation or of involvement of the citizens that appear in the horizontal lines here. For example, you can involve citizens in the design, in the execution, or the monitoring of whatever action is done. So again, I think that this table here summarizes the main ideas of the paper, because it provides us here with examples of how citizens were traditionally involved in each one of these perspectives, and how information and communication technologies facilitate new ways of doing it. For example, when you were thinking about citizen sourcing and you just, the government only wanted to consult with the citizens and get their ideas, so provide them with ideation for projects. Traditionally, they had these meetings on the town hall. Citizens could write or answer letters that were sent by the government, and you had things like that. And then ICT facilitates this by providing possibilities like e-rule making, idea scale, e-democracy, party. These are ideas that the author deals with in the paper. Some of them are local examples, so we're not so related to, but in other cases, they just do it more, how would I say, more in a more general fashion. For example, here, when you think of the government becoming a platform and the citizens taking action, for example, here when the government provides a platform for informing and nudging the customer, the citizens, traditionally they did that through brochures, health labels, and so on and so forth. ICT facilitated, they can provide information on crime mapping, data mining, and the citizens will then, being aware of that information, will take their own decisions of which parts of the city they want to visit, where they want to work, or where they want to live, or whatever, right? So I believe here that we could spend quite some time discussing this table, but it's I would say this is the main focus of the paper, thinking of these three perspectives and seeing in which level of activity you would like citizens to be involved. Considering that it's just about time for us to meet Rodrigo, my idea would be that we finish this session here. I just wanted to know first if you have any questions about this paper, any ideas about this paper that you want to share before we close here, and then I would try and call Rodrigo so that he can join us. Any questions about this? Sorry, I wish maybe we could talk a little further about this paper, and maybe we do it after we talk to Rodrigo. But I really think that the discussion of this table too is more than enough to understand most of what the paper says. But anyway, questions, suggestions, ideas? Danilo, any question?
Nope, not really. I think it's good.
Okay, so I want to become, all guys to become more active than you are when we have Rodrigo with us, right? We want to impress him and show that we do good research here in Brazil with our graduate students. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll close this meeting and I'll start another meeting. And in this next meeting, hopefully, if technology helps, and if we're not waking up Rodrigo too early there, it's 7:25 in the morning for him. So I think it's, and I think he has a class at 8. So he's going to be with us for half an hour if technology helps. Then we'll do it in this next session right after this one. Okay. So this is already my alarm clock to tell me that I have to invite him to participate in our meeting here. So I'll close here and start again right after.